my top 15 billionaires. They're not all bad. And that is the purpose of this video. And I wanted to do this because I want to try to separate the things that we can all argue are huge problems for our society and our country and so on and so forth. I wanted to separate that from the negative connotations that get applied to making money. So let's get into it. Now, first and foremost, before I even start this list, I want to say something pretty clearly. And that is that I don't think billionaires are saints. I don't think that extreme wealth automatically makes someone virtuous. I think we have a problem in our society right now where people automatically apply that logic. Someone's a billionaire, and so they immediately jump to conclusions. Well, they must be geniuses. They must be awesome. They must have worked hard. They must have, and none of that is factual whatsoever. And there'll be plenty of things that I will mention on my podcast about why that's false. But I also think that it's lazy to just believe that, or pretend that every billionaire is evil. I think that's lazy. Do I absolutely believe that, wealthy people should pay taxes and operate under the same rules as everybody else? Of course. Of course I believe that. However, the idea that billionaires equal bad, I want to expunge that and expunge it today. So first and foremost, I know that some billionaires hoard their money. Some billionaires extract. But some billionaires also invest in infrastructure and technology and advance humanity. Some reinvest in society. Some evolve. And that needs to be accounted for. So the list that I'm going to break down is about people who I think, in my opinion, have impacted the world in a good way and show that capitalism doesn't always have to mean cruelty. And so that's why I'm doing my top 15. And hopefully some of you are going to stick by and listen. So number 15, the first one I want to bring up is Michael Bloomberg. And I already know some people are going to already chastise me for this because there's a lot of negative connotation with Michael Bloomberg because of what happened in the election when he ran and so forth. But I want to, if I can, maybe paint a different picture for you because Michael Bloomberg, first of all, as a businessman, he built Bloomberg into a global empire. He invented, it was him that created all the softwares that are used for stock markets, tracking stock markets. Even if you were to go right now into, many of the banks on Wall Street that are using, any software to indicate everything from candlesticks and the lines and what's happening with all this stuff. And the most advanced software that is being used, at least to my knowledge, I could be wrong on this as of recently, but I know for a long time, was Bloomberg software. So he created a tool that kind of powers capital markets worldwide, and that can't really be frowned against. I mean, it's a pretty phenomenal achievement, and I think he should be applauded for that. It's not easy, especially. I mean, we have things like Claude and Cursor that can make software in minutes now. But when Bloomberg did that, we didn't have that. So he also served as a mayor of New York and was a great mayor. I think that there's a lot of arguments that could be made for that. He funded public health, or public health campaigns, rather. He did climate initiatives. He was a big part of like civic data transparency, like letting people know exactly what was going on a city scale, which was super huge because that was kind of the beginning of when politics began to realize exactly how important that was. But he was one of the people that turned data into power. And yes, we can argue that later on that got abused by certain individuals, but he used a lot of that power for public health and climate work. And so that's why he's number 15 on my list. For number 14, this would be a couple, and that is Jim and Marilyn Simmons. I believe it's Simmons, or it could be Simons. I'm not really sure how you pronounce it. I've never heard anybody mention their name in like a news broadcast, so I don't know the official the way that you say it. But for the purposes of getting through this, I will say Simons, because I believe it is Simons. But Jim Simons, he built Renaissance Technologies, one of the most successful quantitative hedge funds ever, which is another huge catalyst in driving growth in America. And he really, I mean, that was because when you grow wealth, wealth begets more wealth. And so with that line of thinking, somebody who would create something that magnificent definitely contributed to the overall pie. And many of you watch my show know that I talk about the pie. There is no zero-sum game. Wealth creates more wealth. So that, I think, is inarguable that Jim Simons had massive positive impact on America and the economies and what that did for everybody, because there is a truth that when things like that happen and more wealth is brought into the pie, that allows a lot of people to benefit, even the little guy, in a lot of ways. But what matters just as much is what came after he did that, because through this the foundation he created, the Simons Foundation, he funded like massive amounts of like math and science and autism research. And he didn't just try to make money. They continue, like, he wasn't doing the research in a way to make money. They poured it into basic scientific research that most governments underfunded. Which is like really important. So if our taxes wasn't going to fund a lot of these major programs, he was using his wealth to do that. And to me, that is another prime example of using wealth for positive reasons. Using wealth to impact your society in a good way. So number 13 on my list is Phil and Penny Knight. They're another couple. They're the people who built Nike, and which is, you know, probably inarguably one of the most famous brands in the world. And probably the greatest branding endeavors ever accomplished in the history of American business, in the history of global business. Which, again, you can't really shake a stick at that. So they earn their money in a legitimate way. But what did they do with their money? Well, Penny Knight has been deeply involved in philanthropy, especially education and health. They've donated billions to universities and research institutions. That's capitalism plus reinvestment into a positive arena. And again, this is what we need more billionaires to be doing. More billionaires to be, if we're going to be looking for reasons to praise people when they're billionaires, it should be because of things like this. That's what it should be because. Not because, oh my God, they're a billionaire. Wow, that's so crazy. That's so cool. Billionaire worship. No, it should be because they do amazing things with their money, like Phil and Penny Knight. 12 on my list is John Morgan. He is the founder and owner of Morgan & Morgan, the law firm. And the reason why I love this guy is, first of all, yeah, he built Morgan and Morgan into one of the largest personal injury law firms in the entire country. That is true, but he's been extremely outspoken about healthcare reform, about accessibility to healthcare issues in America. Um, he's a big, huge advocate for wealthy people paying more in taxes. He's always supported that, which that's a big deal. He's a builder who basically came from nothing. John Morgan did not come from money, and he made enormous wealth during his one lifetime on this planet, and still talks about structural reform, and tries to be a vocal advocate for change in the way that we address the class discrepancy in this country. And again, this is a guy who came from nothing. And I'll be honest, in many ways, I'd like to put him even a little higher on my list because of his values and the fact that he came from nothing. But there's a reason why he is where he is, and I went over it and mulled over this list repeatedly before I came to the conclusion that I came to now. So the other, my number 11, is Sam Altman. Now, for those of you who don't know who that is, he's OpenAI. He runs OpenAI. He helped obviously accelerate AI into mainstream use through ChatGPT. That's Sam Altman is ChatGPT. If Elon Musk were watching, he would want to kill me for praising Sam Altman and putting him on this list. There's a reason why Elon is not on this list. I don't want to get into negativity, but there are certain reasons why people like him and Mark Zuckerberg and I could name a few others, like Peter Thiel and there's a few others. I'm just blanking at the moment, but there's a reason why they're not on this list. Sam Altman makes this list. First of all, even though I do believe that ChatGPT right now is not the most advanced AI right now. I think it's getting smoked. It's been having a lot of hallucinations lately. When I use other ones, they seem to not hallucinate as much. I think that ChatGPT could use some advancement for sure. But one of the things that I love about the way that Sam Altman designed it is that I do believe that it is very factual, very logical, very unemotional, and non-bias. Probably more so than any other AI. I mean, it could be argued that Google's Gemini is probably just as non-biased, but Sam Altman, I think, did make it a point to make sure that that happened. Unlike, of course, what Elon Musk has done with Grok, which we all know he essentially went in and broke it to make it answer questions the way that he wanted it to, which is why I don't trust Grok. But even if you're concerned about AI and you could still admit that Sam Altman's at the center of the most controversial AI period in probably American history or world history or ever, obviously. This is a tumultuous time, so we can all admit that. But you also have to admit that he was sort of the pioneer, one of the most important pioneers of the most important technological shift in human history. And that can't be overlooked. But he's also publicly discussed regulation and AI safety, not just AI scale, but AI regulation and AI safety, which I think is absolutely important, especially during this time period when there seems to be others who want to, have a fascist government, overthrow democracy because democracy is inconvenient for their speed of scale. And Sam Altman does not seem to be a supporter of that. And that has also been said in private text messages that have been leaked. And that's one of the reasons why Sam Altman makes this list at number 11. I do like him. I do think he has good intentions. Elon Musk claims he doesn't, but Elon Musk is slighted because he gave hundreds of millions of dollars to Sam Altman to build it when he was a nonprofit. and then he turned into a for-profit and sold to Microsoft, or I think he sold, or he worked out some partnership with Microsoft, and that pisses Elon Musk off. But when Elon Musk goes on, episodes and talks about how he thinks that Sam Altman's evil, that he's made these, underhanded comments about how he wants to rule the world through AI. I think that sometimes behind every allegation is a confession. And I'll just leave it at that. Anyways, moving on from 11, let's move on to 10. My 10th favorite billionaire is Melinda Gates, not Bill Gates. He would have been on this list, but he loses it because of the Epstein files. I'm sorry, but, there's just enough information there and things that have come out. I mean, there's a reason why Melinda left him, because of the Epstein files. So for that reason, Bill Gates loses. And it's kind of sad because I know that he did do a lot of philanthropic things and he did a lot of beautiful things for the world, but he loses. He loses this list. I'm sorry. When you're hanging around a notorious serial pedophile and rapist and getting STDs from sleeping with girls that he's providing you, you don't make this list. But Melinda Gates, she does make this list because she is just as responsible for a lot of the things that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation did. So she gets the credit for that without any of the dark stuff, because she found out that Bill was involved with the Jeffrey Epstein stuff and was like, peace, I want nothing to do with you. And, you got to hand it to her. So Melinda used a lot of her wealth and her platform to fund like global health, women's health initiatives, vaccine access around the world. For those of you who are rational and understand how important that could be for society, and you're not some conspiracy theorist on the internet that acts like they were out to murder people, she did a lot of good in the world. She didn't build Microsoft, but she did build philanthropic infrastructure that operated at a global scale. She did that with Bill, and some argue, if not more than Bill. But she represents something important, influence and being intentional behind your decisions with your money to do amazing things around the world. And that's the reason why Melinda hits 10 on my list. My 9th favorite billionaire. This is a fun one. Reed Hastings. Reed Hastings is number 9 on my list. For those of you who don't know who that is, he co-founded Netflix. He saw streaming long before anybody else did. And I have such a great story about this because I was working at Blockbuster. I had a job at Blockbuster, just a regular guy working and selling movies, stocking shelves at Blockbuster. And I remember when Netflix popped up on the scene. And at first, there was competition because they had the mail-in DVDs. So instead of having to go to the store, pick up the DVD, rent it, and then bring it back and drop it in the slot, you didn't need a storefront. He basically made it so you can go to a website, just order it, get the DVD, and just drop it in the mail and mail it back when you're done. And that was smart. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, this guy's a genius. He had my mind going where I'm like, man, I want to get involved in something like this. I remember thinking, like, what if I built a business like that? Like, it's really brilliant. And of course I didn't. But he went on to immediately before anybody, and there's a rumor, there was a site that people used to go to, I forget the name of the domain, but you could pretty much go and click on any movie and stream it, but it was illegal. And there's rumors that it was Reed Hastings that was behind that website. But I digress. I don't know if that's true or not. Again, it was just rumors. But the first thing he did when Netflix started to grow and expand was he turned it around and he went into streaming before anybody even thought of it. And I remember it was wonky at first. It didn't work that well. It was kind of like strange. Like loading the movies, but he saw the future and he got in on it before anybody else did. And for that, he needs to be applauded. So he earned it through a beautiful, beautiful idea. He reshaped media. He also funded education reform and he did other social initiatives with his money. And you could debate media culture, but the strategic foresight that he had was real. And then on top of that, he has refused to participate in cancel culture. So, like, the idea that, like, say, Dave Chappelle does a comedy routine and makes fun of, makes trans jokes or something, and everybody starts attacking him for it and says, well, not everybody, but there were certain pockets of people that were pretty mad about it. And they went to Reed and they were like, you should remove his show. And he's like, no, absolutely not. And, he was even, it was like I heard a story where somebody had said something to him about, well, you don't have any trans comics on your channel or whatever, or something ridiculous like that. And Reed was like, give me one and I'll put it on there. Because he is a fervent believer in free speech, which is one of the reasons why I'm very glad, or at least he's winning the war, the last I knew, on buying Warner, rather than letting the Ellison family buy it, because we've already seen the Ellison family be biased, which is why they're billionaires that aren't on this list. We've already seen that they have bias in their approach. And the way that, look what CBS just did to Stephen Colbert over an interview with a guy that, now granted that could be them just trying to save face and make sure that, they don't get, they don't want to lose their broadcast license, and they might just be, but at the end of the day, you shouldn't kowtow to people that are trying to thwart free speech. You should stand up in the face of it. And I feel like Reed Hastings is somebody who has. And so that's the reason why Reed is on this list at number 9. Number 8 is, and I love this guy, Steve Ballmer of Microsoft. He grew Microsoft aggressively during his tenure there. Afterward, he launched USA Facts, which is an excellent website to promote public data transparency and actually be able to present you with actual facts, which I think is beautiful, because we live in a time with social media and the internet and everything where misinformation is just rampant. And I thought that was a very beautiful gesture for him to say, okay, we need a place where actual raw statistics and data can be calculated and sent out transparent, so that you can flip through the bias. So if you read a story, whether it's right-wing or left-wing news, and you get some sort of statistic, you can go to USA Facts and fact check it. And you will find that whether it's left-wing or right-wing, you will find that sometimes statistics they throw at you are not true. And that's what's so beautiful about USA Facts, is it's non-biased and it's based on the truth. And that's another reason why I love Steve Ballmer, because once again, you have a billionaire that cares about society, cares about things beyond profit and wealth and his own. You don't see Steve Ballmer driving around in Lambos. You don't see Steve Ballmer putting press releases out every day, trying to pat himself on the back or beat his chest about what a great person he is or how he's a genius. You don't see that. He just does these beautiful things that can help society. He's donated billions of dollars toward education, towards civic initiatives. He's loud, like when he talks, and he's funny. He's boisterous. He has a wonderful personality, but he funds real infrastructure and important things that actually matter. And he's a great guy with a great sense of reason and a wonderful personality and a very, very likable guy. And that's the reason why Steve Ballmer is on my list of 15 billionaires that I love at number 8. Number 7 is a mix. I combined Sergey Brin and Larry Page of Google. And I'm sure that a lot of people are going to hate me. I don't know. There's people out there that just really hate billionaires and they have something bad to say about all of them. And I get it. But at the end of the day, I'm just trying to be honest, man. And some of these billionaires are some pretty cool people. Sergey Brin and Larry Page together built Google, which without a doubt is the most unbelievable, monumental, probably a business ever created, if you ask me. Now you could criticize big tech if you want, and some criticisms are definitely valid. I'm not going to try to take that away from you. But online search changed access to information globally. And Google has funded renewable energy research, health research, scientific innovation. They built digital infrastructure. They did monumental things. But one of the things, and this is the reason why they're so high on my list, is they've never sold out. And what I mean by that is that they continue to make sure that YouTube is free for speech, that anybody can go on YouTube and say whatever they want. They might, in small ways, have made some adjustments to their settings to appease the current regime in charge of America, administration, whatever you want to call it. They did little minor things, but they didn't do the things that like Mark Zuckerberg is doing, where he's got Dana White on his board, and you're seeing a what appears to be a intentional suppression of people vocalizing their disdain for ICE, or their disdain for this regime. I've seen a lot of bias coming from the Zuckerberg camp. Obviously, we've seen extreme bias come from Elon Musk with X. We're hearing stories about how now that the Ellisons have taken over the American data of TikTok, that there's been some fuckery going on in there, where people are saying that they're making videos that are anti-ICE and they're getting banned immediately or whatever. I don't know if any of this is true, but there does seem to be a lot of people that are complaining about this. You don't hear about that on YouTube. You just don't. Whether you could be the most right wing, the most left wing, you could be anything you want and say pretty much anything you want, as long as you're not trying to scam somebody, you're not talking about a illegal child essay or things of that nature that can get, obviously there's some rules of that nature, but they haven't sold out when it comes to being the largest media platform in the world. They have not, they've even gone out of their way to make it so little people like me can still get an audience. I could put out videos and grow. There's a couple channels that I know went from 0 to 100,000 subs just in the last year. They're not letting all the people that are already known float to the top and have all the views and all the power, and making the new guy and the little guy come out and have no platform. Like all these other, like that seems to be happening on every other form of social media. It's just ridiculous. And I love that Sergey Brin and Larry Page have been honest billionaires, have done a very good job of advancing AI. They currently have the most advanced AI, arguably. I mean, I think that is kind of the consensus right now. And I feel like they want to do right by democracy. They want AI to fit into our current systems that work for humanity. They're not trying to break the system and change it to make it more of a monarchical, fascist, authoritarian culture so that it can become easy for deregulation on AI or any of that. They're not doing that. Now, are they still donating money to the current administration and standing? Of course. Well, I mean, look, you got to do what you got to do to some degree. You don't want to wind up putting yourself in the crosshairs, right, of retaliation. But overall, I have a lot of respect for Brin and Page. And that's why they're on this list at number 7. Number 6, and I already know people are going to get real mad at me for this, but number 6 is Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos is number 6 on my list. And I'm going to tell you why, because I know some people are going to get upset. I know you guys heard the story about his yacht, and, I don't even know if it was a true story or not. But there was some story that circulated that he wanted to tear down some historical monument that was thousands of years old or something to move a yacht or something. I don't even know. And there's, they say he has people working in deplorable work conditions. He's replacing people with AI bots and all this type of shit. Um, Let me just clarify, because I think it's important that you guys understand that Jeff Bezos has repeatedly, over and over again, tried to do the right thing. When he was told about minimum wage long before America ever raised it, he started paying people $15 an hour before anybody. He had made the decision to give people a livable wage way before anybody. Even if you live in California, or I'm sorry, even if you live in, Alabama, where it might still be $7 or $8 an hour, minimum at Amazon is $15 an hour. He decided that a long time ago when people were crying about wages. And that's the kind of guy he is. And I think that says something. Every time that there's the scare that he's going to replace everybody with machines and robots, he doesn't. He might in certain areas, he might let go of certain people and things that are kind of monotonous anyways. You can't argue that, man, he has these people working in deplorable conditions, or he has them working these horrible jobs that nobody should work. They're mentally straining. And he says, okay, well, you know what? Let's have a machine do that. And then you get mad that he has a machine do that. You know what I mean? So there's that. And I will say that in defense of him. But besides that, he completely changed commerce. Completely. And then with AWS, he changed computing infrastructure, which is absolutely monumental. And that's all under Jeff Bezos's, leadership. And he's committed billions to climate change initiatives in education. Billions of dollars. He bought the Washington Post. And I would argue that since he did that, it's been a very non-biased news network. He did the best he could to make sure that only the facts and the legacy of the Washington Post continued forward. All of that is commendable. He might be controversial to some degree, and he is an aggressive businessman, but his success is undeniable. And now I want to talk about the most important thing about Jeff Bezos and why he's on this list. Is that every company that Jeff Bezos has ever created is like a really great company. Like, I go into a grocery store that is owned by Jeff Bezos, like Amazon Fresh. And the way that they run that store, people walk around with computer devices in their hands, and they'll walk up and they'll say, hey, can I help you? What are you looking for? Oh, I'm trying to find lettuce. Oh, lettuce is over here. Let me walk you over there. They just, they find, unbelievable. Unbelievable. I don't know why every grocery store doesn't run like this. And every business he has runs efficient. And like even little things, like if they mail you something by mistake, they tell you, go ahead and keep it. If they accidentally mail your item to another place by mistake, they let that person keep it. But then they let you call them up and tell them it didn't arrive. And they just go ahead and send you another one at no cost. They have incredible customer service. I never have an issue with Amazon not working. It's never broken or links don't work or things ain't. Everything works and functions greatly. They have customer service. If you have an issue and you call Amazon customer service, a human being will answer the phone. They will walk you through the problem. They will get to the bottom of it. I'm sorry, but like there's something to be said for someone who becomes a billionaire because they make good businesses that still care about the customer and what we're looking for. And so that's the reason why Jeff Bezos is on this list, because I really don't think that there is a better businessman. He's one of the best businessmen in history because even the companies he buys and takes over, they immediately become better in every single facet. He advances them into the future in a way that actually works for the kind of person and kind of consumer that we are now, rather than keeping things the way that they were in since the 80s, like all these other retailers do. So that's why he's on this list. Number 5 is Oprah Winfrey. I think it speaks for itself. Obviously, she built a media empire from ownership, not just visibility. She comes from nothing. She's another person who came from zero and became a monumental billionaire in a lifetime. And I mean, really nothing. She didn't even have a family that had money. She had nothing. So that is huge. She has given away insane amounts of money, even on her show. She gave away insane amounts of things to people. She's donated tens of millions of dollars to education, to disaster relief, to global initiatives. She turned influence into equity, and she's reinvested in people. And she did that all throughout her entire career and repeatedly. And has always, always stayed true to her beliefs that she needs to take the wealth and the fame that she was blessed with and use it to put it back into the systems that allowed her to do that. She's a super huge advocate for that. And that's why Oprah Winfrey is number 5 on this list, because she's a giver. She always has been. She's not a billionaire that wants to just be, oh, look at me, I have all this money. And she has shown that you could become a billionaire and give away a lot of money and still be a billionaire. Ain't that something? You don't need to be like a billionaire that's like, oh man, well, yeah, but if I give away all my money, then I'd be broke. No, when you're a billionaire, your money makes more money in the markets than you can even give away. You could give away, $10 million every month. You'll just make $50 million that month just from your money sitting in the accounts. You can't even get rid of the money fast enough to go broke. And that's the reason why billionaires like Oprah Winfrey, they understand that. That's the reason why I like her and why I like billionaires who think like that, as opposed to the greedy people that want all this power and don't want to ever contribute or give away to anything. So, number 3 on my list of favorite billionaires is Jensen Huang. For those of you who don't know who that is, he is the founder of NVIDIA. Not only am I a gamer and I love video games and I'm a PC gamer, and obviously NVIDIA is huge because it's always been a a catalyst for creating amazing graphics cards for video games, which I am an avid gamer. But it's also the biggest part of AI, because AI runs on, the vast majority of AI right now runs on NVIDIA technology. And he basically became the backbone of AI infrastructure. He is that guy. I know Google right now is working on their own. They want to make their own cards so that they can not be reliant on NVIDIA. And that's one thing. But Jensen Huang is, even though he's in a very, very powerful position, he is one of the nicest guys you will ever talk to. And not that I met him, but I have watched countless interviews where he's talking, and he really cares about humanity. He really cares about people. He really cares about, he's the kind of guy that if you sat down with him and you were talking to him about business, he would stop you mid sentence and just be like, how'd your day go? How's your kid doing? He's genuinely a wonderful person, and he's funny as all hell. He's like a comedian. He throws jokes out there, and he's a riot. But his GPUs, they power scientific research, climate modeling, medical innovation. So not only is he a great guy, but the technology that he invented, that he uses on a consistent basis. I always get so close to the mic, and I'm sorry, guys. But he basically built the picks and shovels of AI gold rush. So if you were a guy who invented the best shovels and the best picks during the gold rush, you would be Jensen Huang today. That's the best way to explain it. Number 3 on my list of billionaires is Mackenzie Scott. Now, for those of you who don't know who Mackenzie Scott is, she is Jeff Bezos' ex-wife. And the reason why she's higher than Jeff Bezos, despite the fact that Jeff Bezos did a lot of amazing things. He did a lot of wonderful things, building companies and changing commerce and all that stuff. But she represents something different. She has completely redistributed billions and billions of dollars quickly and directly to nonprofits, often without any bureaucracy. No branding tours, no naming rights, just capital moved efficiently. What I mean is she's literally been like, oh, I like this cause. Grab chunks of billions and just there you go. Not like through a process or let me write this off or let me find a way to figure out a way to invest capital into things that will generate capital so that I donate, but it doesn't come from my no. She just took chunks of money out of her bank account, put it in theirs. And she's done it a lot. And for a lot of wonderful causes. A lot of wonderful causes. Mackenzie Scott is one of the most generous billionaires that's ever existed, probably in history. And I would argue she's right up there with Melinda Gates in terms of her impact on the world through the money that she's given away. Number 2 on this list is Warren Buffett. A lot of you are probably like, Warren Buffett, I thought he'd be number 1. Well, no, he's number 2. But for all the reasons that you probably already know, he's a legendary capital allocator, always has been. He built Berkshire Hathaway through discipline and long-term investing. He's pledged most of his money to philanthropic endeavors. He's given tons of money to to tech companies to build new inventions, new ideas that have completely changed the face of everything that he's invested in. And he's openly advocated for higher taxes on the ultra wealthy, and that matters. He is a huge advocate for taxing the wealth. And for someone with his money, that's great. That kind of altruistic and beautiful way of understanding, systems in our country and society and the way things work, and saying, yeah, I have a lot of money and it would be beneficial if we paid more in taxes so that money can be spent wisely throughout the country in ways that will help everybody. And so everybody knows that Warren Buffett, if you know anything about him, that he understands the responsibility of his role in the system. And he's lived in the same house, small house that he's lived in for decades. He goes to McDonald's to get a breakfast sandwich. He never lives beyond his means. Well, he has a lot of means, but you know what I mean? He never spends money on all these insane things just to be like, look at me, I'm rich. He is a prime example of a good billionaire. And he would be number 1 on my list were it not for number 1. And number 1 on my list is Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban is my favorite billionaire in the world. Because Mark Cuban blends market thinking with pragmatism. And that's something that I feel like all billionaires really should do. Warren Buffett does too. But Mark Cuban is innovative with it. He's been innovative with blending market logic and pragmatism. He built wealth through serious risk and innovation. He started with absolutely nothing, which is another thing I absolutely respect. He comes from nothing. He launched cost-plus drugs as a way to lower prescription prices, which is like monumental. And he did it through market mechanics, not slogans, not like, oh, look at me. Oh, I stand for this. No, he wanted to figure out a way to lower prescription drug prices and actually do it quietly. You don't see him beating his chest, going on talk shows every day, talking about what a hero he is, or that he feels that it should be done, or that there needs to be something done about it. I love it when billionaires are on TV going, there needs to be something done about it. It's like, you're a billionaire. You could have something done about it. But there's a difference between doers and talkers. And Mark Cuban is a doer. And that's the reason why I love that man. And he talks openly about capitalism's flaws. While he still operates inside of it, he talks about, that billionaires should be playing by the same rules. He talks about how taxes should be paid more by billionaires. He talks about how there should be bigger investments in healthcare and things of that nature. Um, he's a huge vocal advocate for a lot of the things that somebody who isn't a billionaire would think. And that's the reason why he's my number one billionaire. But I want to give an honorable mention before I wrap this up. And that honorable mention is Scott Galloway. And the reason why I'm mentioning Scott Galloway is not because he's a billionaire, because he's not a billionaire. He's worth around $150 million, but he could have been a billionaire. He's somebody that could have easily been a billionaire. But he is somebody that 100% stands behind the idea that it's stupid to become a billionaire, that he doesn't need that much money. He could have easily optimized purely for wealth. Easily. He was in a prime situation to say, how can I turn 150 million into $1 billion? And he could have. But instead, he used his platform to critique power structures. He used his platform to call out corporate excess and excessive wealth. He used his platform to call out the people who abuse inequality and speak honestly about it. He even has a platform right now that you should sign up to and look up. And I wish I could plug it right now, but I actually don't know the name of it. But he has a platform that is trying to get people right now to sign up to stop subscribing to all of these billionaire companies as a way of protest to get the corporate billionaires to stop capitulating to the current administration and the things that they're doing that are just awful. Because behind closed doors, these presidents and CEOs are texting people about how they can't stand what Trump is doing, but then they're capitulating with him anyways. And so that's not good. And so Scott Galloway believes in the idea, no, we should protest with our money, which is the best way to protest. Stop giving them money, stop paying for their services, and you hit their profits and lower their margins and lower their share prices, and you're gonna see them change real quick. You have to hit them in the pocket. Scott Galloway knows that. But not only does he know that, he's someone worth $150 million that could have easily optimized to become a billionaire, that chose not to because he doesn't think it's necessary for him to have that kind of money. And then he openly advocates for forcing billionaires to pay their fair share and to stop living excessively at the same time. So even though he's not a billionaire, he makes this list because he's someone who could be and always could have been a billionaire. Not always could have, but you know what I mean. In the last decade or so, if he wanted to, he could have been. He's not interested. And I think that that's really commendable. So here's my position, okay? This mic, I'm sorry, I keep getting so close to it. Capitalism is a tool. It can create inequality. It can create extraction. And it can also create infrastructure, innovation, and opportunity. It can create opportunity. Wealth alone doesn't define morality. And what does? Character. Character does. Character defines morality. Incentives do. What you do or what you choose to do after you win, that's what defines morality. Do I believe that we should hold billionaires accountable? Of course. Nobody is more of an advocate of that on my show than me. No, nobody is more of an advocate than me of that idea. But should we expect them to pay taxes? Yes. Should we regulate markets where necessary? Put guardrails on there so that billionaires can't keep abusing their status? Absolutely. But we should also be mature enough to recognize nuance, which is something I talk about a lot on this show. Not all billionaires are villains. Some build things. And some of those things that they build make life better for everybody. And that's true. And if we want a healthier version of capitalism, then we should reward the ones who operate with some sense of responsibility. That's my take. Reward the ones that are fulfilling their corporate social responsibility and punish the ones that aren't. And how do you do that? You might say, well, how do you reward them and how do you punish them? With your money. With your money. Take your money and spend it on products that are made by the good billionaires, and stop spending it on products and services that are put forth by the bad billionaires. It's that simple. Scott Galloway will be the first to tell you, but I'll be the second. For those of you who don't know Scott Galloway, I'd recommend watching him, by the way. He's brilliant. But that's my take. That's my take. Money is a tool. And just like any tool, you will know exactly who somebody is by the way they use that tool. And if you want people to be more inclined to use that tool in a good way, reward it. And if you want them to be less inclined to use that tool in a bad way, punish it. Anyway, this is Tom Kane. This was another episode of Executives Playbook. This was live over Facebook and YouTube. There will be a condensed version of the video uploaded shortly to the channel for those of you who missed it. But anyways, for those of you who popped in and watched, hopefully you'll like the video, subscribe, all that stuff. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear who you think is a good billionaire. I'd love to hear who you think is a bad billionaire. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to know. Make sure you like the video. And it was nice seeing you guys. I will be back again tomorrow. Thanks.